Well, welcome everyone to the third presentation of the day. We've got Ken Dooley joining us from Finland, although he's not Finnish. I know that because we have spoken. He's from Ireland. And Ken is working at Haltian in the Empathic Building program. And very interesting conversation we already had the other day. And yeah, even though Haltian is a tech company, one could, I think, simplify it like that, and the Empathic Building is a kind of tech solution, but you're obsessed with people and with what people want to do, and why would people want to go back to the office, and what role technology has in all of this. So I'm very, very curious to hear and learn more about this. And I hope the audience also feel very excited about this and share questions on the chat. So Ken, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Key. Yeah, I talk about employees, but I guess we're talking about humans at the end of the day. I'll share my screen. Please alert me if I'm not sharing it correctly. Okay, so as Key said then, I'm Ken Dooley. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Empathic Building. And we've had really good presentations today. We had a really good campfire a moment ago in Campfire A. And I guess people kind of know these things already, but let's touch on some of the kind of important things about a workplace. I'm going to talk in a moment some more concrete details about kind of face-to-face collaboration, but it is a huge element of kind of business success for any company who's kind of facing disruption, or any company where innovation is important and change is happening. There's a huge element.
We don't see the full screen screen share, but the presentation mode type of
okay,
version.
Let me try again. I share your entire screen, and then I click share, and then I go into PowerPoint, and then I do this.
But now we see this kind of moderator mode, that we don't see the screen maximize.
I can, okay.
If you share the application window, then I think it should work.
Okay, I'll try application window, and I'll go to PowerPoint. Let's do it that way. How is that?
Yeah, now it's perfect.
Okay, super. I'm going to restart my timer for a moment. Okay, so as I said then, from an empathic building, just to kind of touch on some elements. So from a collaboration point of view, I'll touch on again. From a kind of bonding point of view, it's a really important thing that companies are really interested in, that I'm really interested in as an employee with my colleagues. It's a way to build kind of kindness and compassion and consideration, empathy for those people we work with on a daily basis. So if someone has too much work, or someone has a problem they want to talk about, then it's really important that we have some kind of face-to-face relationship rather than this kind of 2D screens relationship. The other element then is social interaction. We are kind of social animals. We do need to kind of get outside the walls of our home. And I think if I was to work 100% remotely, I think I would find a kind of shared workspace close by to my home. And actually, people have been calling this lately the day tribe. If our work colleagues aren't our day tribe that we interact with on a daily basis, we will find someone else to hang around with and have coffee with and have lunch with. And then there's lots of other kind of examples of, people have personal issues or personal elements of home doesn't work for me. It could be they're sick of eating leftovers and sandwiches. It could be to do with Wi-Fi. It could be to do with noise. I'm kind of sick of wearing stretchy trousers personally. And another thing for me that I really find working from home is this kind of inability to kind of get out of my own headspace, to get out of the kind of the monotonous tasks that we have to do on a daily basis. Not that they're totally boring, but to step away from it. Sometimes I need to wear kind of grown-up clothes and stand in a nice room and meet interesting people, and maybe eat really nice food as well. So there's an element there as well of just kind of getting outside to think about things differently that I personally can't do at the home. The kind of things I'll talk about today, I'll talk about employee experience. I'll talk about face-to-face collaboration, about this element of trust or the feeling of safety in the workplace, after the pandemic or during the pandemic if it continues after summer, and then about adjusting space, and then I'll touch on virtual collaboration. Empathic building then is this kind of digital twin or an interactive kind of floor plan or digital map tool for buildings. This is an example of a big building. It's a hospital in Norway. I'll show a video in a moment, and then we kind of see the digital twins or the interactive floor plans as kind of guaranteeing really good end user experience of employee experience. And then we kind of find as well, and I'll show some facts in a moment, that this actually is a really good place to also collect some data for managing the spaces for operational excellence. This kind of touches a little bit on what empathic building is. It's 2D, it's 3D. You can kind of see the rooms availability from Outlook or the desk availability. There's various kind of info tags around where you can click the lunch menu, or you can see the temperature or CO2. This is our small office building in Finland. You can kind of record service tickets of things that need fixed, or you can kind of share feedback. There's also kind of navigation in here and reporting in here, and you can search for rooms or rooms with certain devices, or you can search for colleagues. The kind of tip of the iceberg I kind of showed you there, but I just wanted to give you a kind of a feeling, a look and feeling of what the tool looks like. It's actually been built completely by software developers, so people who don't have a real estate bias. It's been built with a kind of user experience and a games kind of mindset. So we really feel that everything is easy to use, it's intuitive, and that's one of the kind of key elements of empathic building. From an employee experience point of view, I have a kind of real estate background. I understand, let's say, facility management and energy, and maybe the cost side of real estate. And really, when we've been looking at IoT and investments in smart buildings over the last couple of years, these have been the kind of key things that matter to people. There's no point putting smart meters if you're trying to attract employees, or there's no point telling them that the water coming out of the taps is fresh and clean, because people just accept that and it's part of their expectations. But if it's really meaningful, if we can take some of the friction out of people's day, if we can save them time with the tools we use, or provide more choice, for example, of spaces. The tools need to be super easy to use. Things like QR codes or really difficult to use apps to download are off-putting for some people. Empathic building is just a web app that you can have on a touch screen or on your phone or on a laptop. And I think it's really important as well, the kind of magic to try and help people to live healthier lives, or to be safer, or to even live a more sustainable lifestyle as well. And empathic building, with the kind of from a time point of view, it's like many of these workplace apps. You can kind of clearly see where the free desks are. You can clearly see where the ad hoc rooms or the bookable meeting rooms are. And then you can kind of make bookings through the user interface as well. And then there's really handy things like kind of seeing the lunch menu, or showing the guidelines for that floor, if it's a quiet floor, a noisy floor, or the COVID guidelines. And in some places as well, with regards to saving time, we've even shown the length of the lunch queue. Talking then about face-to-face collaboration. This is a slide from Tenant and Partner, who are consultants in Sweden. I always listen to one of their staff, Kati Barklund, who is really knowledgeable on kind of workplace design and on engagement and kind of empowerment in workplaces. And they're really saying that, you know, productivity, performance these days, it means collaboration. So I work part-time for a university, and in our university, there's kind of budgets to get people out of their buildings, to get the business school and the scientists and the art and design school, to kind of get them to mingle, to get the kind of designers and the sustainability and the business people to kind of meet in queues or at events. And it's a huge element of kind of breaking silos and being innovative. And we often say that innovation doesn't happen in scheduled face-to-face meetings. It can, but it often happens in car parks or corridors or lunch restaurants or coffee machines. Sometimes we call it design for serendipity. Sometimes we call it for the bump effect. And the kind of things that create innovation sparks, they don't sound important, but they are really important. And there's also kind of gatekeepers who kind of slow down innovation in large companies, and it's not those people's fault. It's the people that we don't like to call up or leave a voicemail or send an email to, because they're already really, really busy. And we don't want to give them another task that they have to do or disrupt them again. But if we see them in the campus or in the office building, we'll say, hey, you know, we have a new coder in our team. They've just started. They're only using 50% of their time. Would you like to borrow them? And quite often when I've said that, people said, oh, yes, thank you. Or it's a conversation like, hey, one of our main customers, the person we work with the most, she's moved to a new company. Maybe they could become our customer as well. You guys should contact them. Or it's things around that project we talked about 2 years ago. It's finally been greenlit. We're doing it now. Kind of come over. And these are kind of just conversational things, but they do create change, and we need to kind of create space for them. So in empathic building, you can kind of see where colleagues are. Either they manually locate themselves with their avatar and their profile, and you can search to see where they are in the building, or many of our customers actually purely from a collaboration point of view are wearing kind of Bluetooth tags in their name cards, and then you share your location if you want to. And that's kind of how people find each other. And then I see, okay, my colleague is in the office today. I'm going to ask him how that project meeting went. That I don't want to send an email and then he has to write some big long email afterwards. But you can ask kind of these kind of simple questions. And then we've talked to a customer lately who in our avatar, when you click our names, I have here that I'm in the office Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. You can also have a chat function where you find me and you look for me and you can chat, but it takes you in a link to Teams, for example. Another example then, and we've been talking about this in Campfire A, is, you know, do we need to get people to trust from a safety point of view office buildings? This has been something people have been working on quite a lot for the last year, people who really wanted to get people into the office for whatever reason. There's been a lot of discussion around air. Here we have one office building with CO2 sensors everywhere. And there's an idea now where seeing a meeting room with the freshest air is kind of really important, especially when COVID-19 is essentially mostly airborne. So I guess one of the questions we were talking about in Campfire A moment ago was, will we still get into an elevator crammed with lots of people? Will we still walk into a meeting room that's been really had 10 people in there for the last 4 hours and you need to have the door left open for a while? I can have a theory that actually we may get to the point where we're booking meeting rooms just to send an invitation to our colleagues and customers and just to reserve 4 walls in case most of the meeting rooms, all of the other meeting rooms are reserved. But we might get into a habit after COVID-19 of saying, hey, let's kind of book a meeting room and then 5 or 10 or 15 minutes before, we can check the kind of CO2 levels like we have here on the screen. One has kind of 620, the other ones have around 400. And if I was going to have a meeting in that 620 room, I might look at empathic building. The number might be 800, it might be higher. And I might just change the booking in empathic building. And then everyone gets an Outlook update 5 or 10 minutes before saying the meeting room has been changed. And that might sound frustrating today, but as we get used to that habit, we check on our phone 5 or 10 minutes before the meeting to see where it is. And I can kind of see that happening as well. And we can do that in empathic building as well. We can reserve and change reservations through empathic building. And then another element then is that if this is a little bit of a trend that's short-lived, other people are also talking about kind of cognitive function, which is to do with kind of, we call it brain level performance, which then talks about, this is a slide from a Finnish startup called Solitaire, which talk about things like there's been some Harvard studies that say every time the parts per million gets raised by 400, we kind of lose 20% of our cognitive function, of our ability to think. So then maybe we have this scenario where these 3 kind of large spaces here for working in that have CO2 sensors, someone in the place that had 1,400 or 1,500 ppm maybe are losing 50% of their ability to think, and another room is over 800 and it's 78. And maybe we get used to the habit of moving from room to room based on CO2 from a COVID, from an airborne pandemic virus point of view, but actually we get used to the habit in saying, I've booked this meeting room for us. Oh, the CO2 is quite high. It's been used a lot today, but there's 3 rooms across the corridor that haven't been used at all. Let's move over there. The air is much fresher, and we'll be able to think clearer. And these are kind of things that we don't know yet. I don't think anyone here really knows how this will work, but they're being raised, and it's really interesting to see how they will evolve. Another example then is surfaces. We've had a lot of customers use the kind of desk and meeting room occupancy data to kind of really direct the cleaners. Every space is being cleaned daily, but the cleaners are kind of focusing on the certain spaces that were really highly utilized a little bit more. We've also had customers who said they'll put a Bluetooth tag on the cleaner's cart, and even some of the cleaning companies are suggesting this. And then the cleaner's customer, the building manager, the building real estate people can actually see today on a heat map, this is where the cleaner has been. And then they can say, okay, great, everything is being cleaned as we expect. So they can offer that level of transparency as well and kind of show where to clean, show, for example, the fill rates of towels or soap dispensers or bins. And here's an example from one customer who at the moment is kind of using a policy where the red desk currently has someone sitting at it, the purple desk had someone using it today, and then the blue desks are currently free. And what they've actually said is that the purple desks have been used by someone today but haven't been cleaned yet. So please sit at a blue desk, and therefore we'll release the purple desks back once they've been cleaned. And these are things we were talking about in Campfire A. Are these really short-lived? Are they essential for September and the first 6 months of back to the return to office? But are they going to last? We really don't know, and it's just really interesting. But the digital twin that we have, it's really easy to create a user interface, a layer for the cleaners, and a layer for the managers, and a layer for the employees as well. Another example then is this adjustment, this kind of resizing our office buildings. Are we going to have less space? Someone said, are the meeting rooms going to have to be much bigger because we need to have 2 meters between everybody, you know, for the next couple of years? So really understanding kind of what is needed and how intensely spaces are used is something that I think is on the tip of everyone's tongue. One thing that makes empathic building, in my opinion, kind of really relevant. I always go back to this report from 2014 that kind of says if you're a knowledge organization, 90% of your costs as an organization are staff costs. So if you're investing in measuring, if you're investing in kind of real estate space efficiency investments, then something like empathic building or the other workplace solutions that solve problems for staff and employees, that take away the small annoying elements of friction, finding spaces, finding desks, finding colleagues, these kind of elements, searching for a room that has a projector or has, you know, something special, has sofas and an electronic whiteboard, then they're the kind of solutions we should offer employees. And then the data generated by that can then be used for this kind of space efficiency ideas. So in empathic building, you know, you can see the desks and the rooms. On the right, on the bottom here, we have one really big customer that has a kind of cool building, and you can see the whole campus overview. You can also put the kind of information about how to use desks. You can reserve a desk just by sitting down. These are kind of Halcyon sensors as well, battery-powered Bluetooth sensors that are really easy to install. They can be installed on a weekend. You don't have to kind of pull down ceilings or do anything with furniture. It can really have this kind of retrofit mentality. And then you can also kind of reserve a desk if needed. Generally, we say that a desk can be permanently assigned or reserved by a sensor or reserved through the booking user interface. But you know, these things are flexible as well, as long as they comply with GDPR. And then other things customers have done. This is one customer who took away some desks virtually. So here they've said, okay, don't sit on these orange desks. They're not available. And they've allowed some different seating arrangements. So there's a space there for 3 people to sit together. There's some spaces for people to sit face to face. And then there's some kind of diagonal or separate spaces for just people sitting alone. You can do this and you can communicate this to your staff, and you can change this over time. You can become more strict or more lenient as time goes on. You can also kind of promote, you know, social distancing and have kind of one-way systems, things like this. And then there's a whole kind of huge amount of reporting, even kind of heat maps, which are really useful for the people that are wearing the Bluetooth tags. You can see people sitting on sofas and these kind of other elements. And I guess then at the end of my talk, then this is kind of my last slide. From a virtual collaboration point of view, that's something that now we're really interested in learning. A lot of our customers have Microsoft Teams. Our customers who are also using us. There's then a third element. Maybe it's some kind of whiteboards or some kind of virtual collaboration. At the moment, we sometimes sit on the rooftop, a virtual rooftop, to say we're working from home. Sometimes we sit in a virtual coffee area to say I'm actually kind of in a casual mode. If you have any questions, I'm not concentrating now. You can disturb me. We have the idea that you can use the avatars for saying when you're in the office next, or having a link to your Teams chat. And I guess then one thing that's really interesting is in a world where collaboration is really important and innovation is really important, then we are seeing some campus customers say, hey, we're going to tell our staff they have to be in the office 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but every day extra we get them to come to the campus, then that's kind of a win for us. So if we can make the campus so enticing and so attractive, then what are those things? Are they, rooms with beanbags and more sofas? Are they rooms with the smell of the forest, like we have in Finland, and kind of forests on the walls? Are they kind of sounds of the sea rooms that we really go into this atmosphere that suits people? But if we offer lots of choice like that, then we really need to have a kind of tight understanding of how heavy they're being used. Otherwise, we just have lots of space that isn't being fully utilized. But we're really interested to hear from you guys as well. So please get in touch. And I think we have quite a unique experience that everyone is kind of asking themselves the same questions all around the same time. But thanks for your time. And that's the kind of overview of empathic building. You can find more at haltyon.com.
Thank you very much, Ken. First thing I have to congratulate you is on the timing. I think I owe you a kilt in a beer based on the challenge that I had thrown out at you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Ken. We have little time and there's a lot of questions, which is a great problem to have. So we will go through what we can now, and those who don't get treated, maybe you can write directly on the chat through direct messaging to Ken. So I'll start with two questions that I'm going to bundle together. One from Hayo, who's asking, what is the critical size, the critical mass that you need for an office to integrate an inclusive smart solution that makes sense, that is not over-dimensioned? And I think Diana asked, or Diana, what would be the cost in terms of, let's say a 1,000 square meter activity-based working office? What would be the investment? Payment has been sort of answering some of these questions along the way. I think, I don't know payment, but I think he's in the same field as Ken. So Ken, critical.
Yeah, and I'll ask Diana's first because it's relatively simple. Actually, the digital twin is really inexpensive to create. So it, for a 1,000 meter squared building, it could be as simple as €2,000. It's the way we've built it. It's taking drawings and really inexpensively building it. And then the sensors after that, the desk sensors are about €40, and there's a cost for Outlook integration as well. But the raw ingredients are super inexpensive. This isn't a building information modeling digital twin. This is something that has been built from a software development point of view to have really just the tiniest ingredients, the minimum ingredients, and for that it scales really well. And then Hayo, who we spoke to in Campfire A as well, it's really hard to know what this kind of perfect allocation is. And I don't think we need to know right now, but I think we need to be able to measure in the next 6 months to a year. And actually, we have a sensor as a service package for 1 year as well, that's available. And I guess from speaking to everyone, I really don't know what the allocation is. I'm not going to say it's one desk for 2 people or anything like that. We're really uncertain, and so are all our kind of change management interior architects friends as well. So I think the answer is to measure and then really know a lot more in 6 months' time or 1 year's time.
Thank you, Ken. We're going to take another question, which comes from Jenny, asking, will people feel like they're being watched? I think Payman already said, this is all GDPR conform.
Yeah.
But beyond the legality, I think there's the feeling, right, of the users.
Yeah. So the desk sensors are completely anonymous. So are the bookings, and you can turn off your location immediately. At one click of a button, you can manage when you're seen and when you're not. Personally, my leadership style is I like to kind of brief people at the start of a project, and then I like to have short one-on-ones with them. But I don't like to have long project meetings every week or every fortnight. And because of that leadership style, then I want to be in the office because I want people to kind of ask me questions because I'm kind of isolating them in the style we work. So I need to be there. I need to be available to answer questions. I don't want people to get stuck. I don't want people. So for me, as a kind of manager and as a person in our company, I want to be found. If people don't want to be found, then you can just turn off it. It's just a setting. but from an innovation and a kind of social point of view. And in our industry, change is happening so quickly. I am one of those people that comes to the office to be social, to have those bump meetings, and I want people to find me. So it's to do with everyone's personal preference, and we can have desk sensors everywhere that are completely anonymous, and then the people that want to share their location can share their location in different ways, maybe via phone app or maybe via Bluetooth tags.
Thank you, Ken. As I said, there's some other questions. I don't want to silence the room. There's Matthias, there's Anna, there's Balsat. Just ask a few more questions. Yeah. Do you mind?
No, not at all. I can stay in this room and I can answer those questions, no problem.
Okay, so those who want to ask to Ken, they can stay. Unfortunately, time is up, so I will need to myself leave to the other session, which is about to start, and I invite also the majority of the attendees also to move over to the other room. So thank you very much, Ken.
Thanks, Gabe. That was fun.
Yes, likewise.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Nicholas, I can see you anyway. I hope other people can join as well. Currently, you're muted. Nicholas, are you able to ask a question with audio? I can answer it if you want. And looking at the questions and Hayo's question as well, the implementation is super easy, and it doesn't have all the functionalities of a design building information model, but it has the essential elements. And I can show some of those things, but it's a really light solution. So that's answering Hayo's question. Hayo, if you're listening, I'll contact you as well on LinkedIn. Jenny, who I spoke to from Aalborg, I hope I answered her question about people feeling watched. Diana, I can answer your question about 1,000 square meter, but it's a really light investment. Thanks, Payman, for answering these questions. And I think Matthias has asked a really good question about the kind of rules we need to kind of manage. So do certain teams need to be here on, set days of the week? I'm not so concerned about that at the moment because I think we have oversized office buildings today. So I think that's another thing that there isn't, again, from speaking to the people who are much more versed in these matters than I am, that's something that we really haven't worked out even over the years so far. I think we have lots of space in our office building, so hopefully we can work that out as we go along. But that's a key element. How does my team say we'll be on Tuesday and Wednesday, and your team say Monday and Wednesday, so we don't have everyone coming on the same common days to the office? Is the system subscription-based or once installed runs it indefinitely? For Anna's answer, it is a subscription. It is a software as a service for the software, and then there's a small connectivity fee for the cloud and the gateways per sensor as well. So there's a question about in case a person chooses not to appear. If they choose not to appear, the data does come in the background, but really kind of GDPR compliant. So I can't tell if payment is in our office building. I can't tell anything historic data. I can just tell maybe if there's I don't know what the numbers are. Maybe if it's a team of more than 20 people, I can see maybe somebody from that team was here yesterday. It's really GDPR compliant, and there's nothing kind of really dangerous about these things. Tom has a question. Are there people working with now? Has there been any research experience so far about peer pressure it might create? Tom, can you? What do you mean exactly about? what is the thing that is a peer pressure? Is it about having to share your location? In the chat, if you can write that question, having to share your location. So our system, the Bluetooth tags aren't being used for anything other than finding people. So, for example, there is peer pressure in a scenario where, if you can imagine a phone booth, and I have a phone app or I have a Bluetooth tag, and I walk into that phone booth, and the phone booth now, because I'm in there with my Bluetooth tag or I'm in there with my phone app, the phone booth says, okay, Ken is in here, I've tracked him, and now the phone booth goes red for everyone else, okay? So in that scenario, Tom, if you're not wearing your Bluetooth tag and you're not wearing, or your phone app, and you walk into that phone booth, I see it's green, I walk halfway across the floor, and you're in there not being tracked. I kind of get annoyed and say, hey, why are you using the phone booth without showing your location? But in that scenario, there is kind of pressure to kind of have a phone app on, but our scenario is kind of hardware first. So we make the desk sensors, we make the kind of roof sensors for walking into a phone booth. So all the essential occupied or unoccupied data, as long as that comes from a really simple piece of hardware, either the Outlook booking engine exchange or either sensors in the phone booths, then having the Bluetooth tags can be completely optional. And that's the approach that we take. And it can be certain teams. We have one kind of, if there's R&D teams and labs that are always in the same desk, they don't have to wear Bluetooth tags. But I was an innovation director in my last role. I, as an innovation director who's working for a whole lot of different people across the whole group, it totally makes sense for me to be found, because I'm one of those people that's working with lots of people, then I would wear my tag. But I think it's a really good question, and we need to design out the peer pressure out of the system. It isn't a problem with what we have right now. Is there any more questions? Super. I can hold on for a little while in case there's more questions. If not, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'll put a link to maybe some of the most interesting kind of the link to can't find it right now. The link to empathic building. Oh, it's because I'm in Google and I don't use Google. I use Firefox. That's why I can't find any of my links. I'll paste a link in here just right now, and that way, hopefully, it'll be something that you guys can learn more about. And feel free to contact me in any of the LinkedIn's or these things. That's totally fine with me. Here's a link to the solution, and then we also have lots of information on there. But thanks all for listening, and if there's any other questions, feel free to get in touch here on the chat, or anything like that.